Dog Walk Chronicles. Today's readings, we start in the book of Ruth, and we read that Naomi has a husband, and she has two sons, and those two sons and the husband's names I'm not going to remember. But the girls' names are Oprah and Ruth. And Naomi's husband dies, and they're living on the plateau of Moab, I believe. And then the two husbands of the daughters-in-law die. Her sons die. And so Naomi says, I'm going to go back to, I guess it's Bethlehem, to my people, where I've heard that God has visited them and they have food. I guess God is feeding the people. So Oprah says, okay, I'm going to go back. They're Moabites. I'm going to go back to my people. And she says, she kisses her and leaves. So yeah, that's just like Oprah, the evil one. No, anyway, I'm joking. So she seems nice enough. And then Ruth says, I will not leave you. Where you go, I will go. Where you live, I will live. Where your people are, I will be with them, etc., etc. I won't leave you. And where your God is, I will follow that God. And Naomi, if you read the full passages, Naomi tells her to go back to your people, but she doesn't. She stays out of love. She stays with Naomi, and they take the journey and go on. And we're going to read a lot about Ruth and what happens, since it is her book. So then in the gospel, we read and that's Ruth, the first chapter. And then in the gospel, I think I forgot. I want to say 22, but that doesn't seem right. Anyway, maybe it is. The Pharisees see that the Sadducees were silenced by Jesus. So one of the teachers or elders goes to Jesus with a question and says, what is the greatest commandment? Jesus says to love God with all your, with all your heart, all your mind, and all your soul, I believe. And he says, and then he said an interesting phrase. He said, and as great as this, or something. That was the intriguing part. Now I don't remember it, so it really doesn't matter. But he says something like, and just as important is that you love your neighbor as you love yourself, or something to that degree. I forget. And then I forgot the rest. But he basically says to love. And I guess in the first reading, Ruth loves Naomi so much that she won't leave her, especially on a dangerous journey to go to her people. And Jesus' main thing is love God. And if we love God, then really the second one is almost de rigueur, because as I've said before, God doesn't need us to give him a ham sandwich and a foot rub, but he needs us to feed the people in our neighbors that need food, and to be consoling to our neighbors. So if you love God, then you have to love his other children. So anyway, I guess the story is love. The idea today is to love. If you love God, you should love everyone else. And yeah, it's really that simple, but that's a hard thing to do. As the people tell Jesus, this is a hard thing. How can we do it? Not in this context. I think it was as if a rich person can't get to heaven. If it's hard for a rich person to get to heaven. Anyway, now I digress. But so love today. Love somebody. If you need somebody to love, why don't you find somebody to love, as the airplane said. I think it's the airplane.